Married for 10 years. I discovered my husband was cheating on me with his secretary. At a board meeting, I played a recording of their passionate encounter in his office. The room was stunned. He was demoted and fined. I filed for divorce, demanding he walk away with nothing. He never knew that the company's most powerful wives club had long been my kingdom. After I sold my original shares back to him at double the price, he showed up with his new lover to provoke me. So, I joined forces with the other wives and ensured his company would never go public. The court ordered all the assets he had hidden under his mistress' name to be returned to me. My in-laws came demanding an explanation and ended up paying me for emotional distress. In the end, I heard the secretary took a knife to the very tool of his betrayal. Good. Now he can never hurt another woman again. The air conditioning in the boardroom was on full blast, but it couldn't dispel the oppressive, suffocating tension of the impending storm. The men and women around the long table sat with grim expressions, flipping through the thin, yet crushingly heavy, draft of a formal apology. At the head of the table sat Ethan, my husband, the CEO of this tech company valued at nearly $1 billion. He was hunched over slightly, his fingertips strumming a nervous rhythm on the polished mahogany. His usual pride and sharp demeanor were now coated in a greasy layer of panic. Like a fine suit stained with an indelible smudge, I sat down across from him, quietly placing my handbag on the table. No one paid me any mind. Their attention was fixed on Ethan, or pretending to be fixed on the teacups before them. Ethan, a senior director, cleared his throat, breaking the suffocating silence. The company is in a critical pre-IPO phase. Any negative publicity could derail years of hard work. This was incredibly foolish of you. Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed. He tried to force a relaxed smile, but it was a hideous grimace. You're right, Director Roberts. I was careless. It's a private matter. Purely private. I'll handle it cleanly. It won't affect the company. A private matter. Another director, a woman, scoffed, tapping her fingernail on the table. Your private matter was made into an HD video and anonymously emailed to every single one of us. And you have the audacity to call it a private matter. Ethan's face went completely white. I lifted the glass of warm water in front of me and took a sip. The temperature was perfect. Just then, the conference room door opened. His secretary, Lynn, swayed in, carrying a coffee pot to offer refills. She wore a tight-fitting blouse, the top 2 buttons undone. As she leaned over, she offered a glimpse of cleavage and a cloud of cloying perfume. Several male directors awkwardly averted their gazes. The female director's lips curled downward in disgust. She approached Ethan's side, her posture intimate and natural, almost pressing against his arm. Her voice was sugary sweet. Mr. Scott, your coffee is cold. Let me get you a fresh cup. Ethan flinched as if had been burned, shrinking away. Get out, he hissed. You have no business being in here. Lynn's smile froze on her face. She blinked, feigning hurt, but when her eyes met mine, that hurt transformed into a fleeting, triumphant smirk. I met her gaze and offered a small, placid smile in return. She immediately looked down and scurried out of the room. The door clicked shut, and the room grew even quieter. Everyone had witnessed the exchange. Any lingering doubt had been utterly erased. It seems Mr. Scott's private matter is not so private after all, the female director said, her voice dripping with ice. I set my glass down. The soft clink was unnervingly loud in the silent room. Since we're all being so open, I began, my voice steady, almost gentle. Perhaps we should all watch a clearer version of this private matter. It would give the board a comprehensive understanding of the situation and help you judge whether or not it will impact the company's IPO. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes, wide with shock, quickly filled with a profound, begging terror. Ava, he nearly shot to his feet. I ignored him. I took a USB drive from my bag and slid it to the assistant next to me. Please, put this on the main screen. Ava, don't. Ethan cried out, the veins on his forehead bulging. The assistant hesitated, looking to the chairman. The chairman was silent for a few seconds before giving a heavy, somber nod. The massive projection screen lit up. There was no sound, only the picture. The CEO's office, the familiar furniture. Even the money tree ID given him in the corner was in the frame. A man and a woman were tangled together on the sofa. The man's profile, the woman's face unmistakably clear. It was Lynn, the secretary who had just left. And the man was Ethan, now sitting at the head of the table, his face the color of ash. The video was short, just over a minute. When it finished, the screen went dark. A dead silence descended upon the room, broken only by the sound of someone's ragged breathing. It was Ethan's. He collapsed in his chair, as if his bones had been removed, his face a mask of ruin. Smack. The female director slammed the apology draft onto the table. Unbelievable. Ethan. The chairman slammed his own hand down. You have profoundly disappointed us all. A chorus of condemnation and fury erupted. The once dense boardroom was now Ethan's personal tribunal. I sat quietly, the calm eye of a storm I had created. 10 years of marriage. A childhood friendship. The early days of our startup spent eating ramen in a basement apartment. Countless memories flashed through my mind, only to be brutally crushed by the image of those two writhing bodies. The pain in my heart was real, but it was quickly being encased in a layer of cold, hard resolve. At the height of his success, he had chosen to destroy everything we had built in the most humiliating way possible. So, I would return the favor in the most thorough way possible. The verdict came swiftly. Ethan was stripped of his CEO title, though he would temporarily retain his board seat. He was to forfeit his entire annual bonus and pay a substantial internal fine, effective immediately. As the meeting adjourned, people filed out, each one casting a complex look in my direction: admiration, and perhaps a flicker of something akin to fear. Finally, only Ethan and I remained. He was still slumped in his chair. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders sagging. He looked as though he had aged 10 years in an hour. I picked up my bag and walked over to him. He looked up, his eyes red, a tangled mess of despair, rage, and a pathetic plea. Ava, why did you have to be so cruel? After all these years? Why? I repeated, my voice devoid of emotion. Perhaps because you had a partner for life, a true comrade. Yet you chose a lapdog who only knows how to beg. His face flushed crimson, humiliation replacing his sorrow. I didn't give him a chance to speak. I pulled another document from my bag and placed it on the table next to a puddle of spilled coffee. Sign it. The words divorce agreement, in bold black letters, made his pupil's contract. He frantically flipped to the asset division page, his eyes scanning the text. He looked up sharply, as if had been stepped on. Walk away with nothing. Ava, are you insane? I built this company. These assets are ours. We built this together. Together. I cut him off, leaning forward, my hands flat on the table, meeting his gaze. Ethan, have you forgotten that the first round of funding for your startup came from my father mortgaging our family home? Have you forgotten who drank themselves sick to land your first core clients? Have you forgotten who stayed up all night with you, researching and finding experts every time you hit a technical wall? With every question, his face grew paler. Together. I straightened up, a contemptuous smile playing on my lips. Is your idea of together rolling around on the office sofa with your secretary after you finally made it? His lips trembled. He couldn't form a word. Sign it. My voice turned to ice. The evidence of your adultery goes far beyond that video. If we go to court, the outcome will be the same. But the process will be far uglier for you. The company is in its pre-IPO quiet period. I imagine you don't want a messy divorce lawsuit causing more trouble for the board. He stared at me, the plea in his eyes finally curdling into pure hatred. He understood. From the moment I found out, I wasn't there to cry or scream. I was there to deliver his sentence. He picked up the pen, his hand shaking so violently he could barely hold it. Finally, on the last page, he scrawled his name. The signature was crooked and weak, like a child's first attempt at writing. I took the signed agreement and gave this man, the man I had loved for most of my life, one last look. Good luck, Ethan. I turned and walked away. The sharp click of my heels on the marble floor echoed down the hall, a steady, rhythmic beat carrying me toward the exit. At the end of the corridor, several impeccably dressed, elegant women were waiting for me. The leader of the group, Mrs. Roberts, stepped forward and gave me a gentle hug. Is it done? Just the first step, I said with a small smile. The girls are all waiting. We're celebrating tonight at the usual place. A celebration for you or a toast to the success of your next move. Mrs. Davis winked at me. Of course. I nodded. We walked toward the private elevator. Our conversation light and easy. A world away from the despair and failure suffocating the boardroom behind us. Yes, they were the wives of the company's largest shareholders and most important clients. And we had a name for ourselves. The Wives Club. Ethan would never understand. The group he once dismissed as a gaggle of bored women sipping tea and gossiping had long ago woven itself into a powerful, invisible web. And this was only the beginning. He and his dear Lynn owed me a debt, and they were going to pay it back, piece by piece, with interest. The boardroom scandal was a stone dropped into a still pond, its ripples spreading rapidly through every corner of the company. I sat in a private room at the Crystal Pavilion, the city's most exclusive and difficult-to-book tea house, and the preferred meeting spot for our Wives Club. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, dancing on the delicate bone china. The air was filled with the aroma of Darjeeling tea and rose-flavored macarons. But the atmosphere was different from our usual leisurely gatherings. There was a palpable excitement, an undercurrent of restless energy. Ava, you should have seen that little tramplin this morning, carrying a cardboard box out of the building. She looked like a drowned rat. All that smug arrogance was gone. The speaker was Mrs. Davis, whose husband was the company's second-largest shareholder. She was fiery and had a fierce hatred for homewreckers. Mrs. Roberts elegantly sliced a scone, slathering it with clotted cream. Her voice was soft, but her words were sharp as a razor. I got a call from HR. Ethan actually tried to protect her, asking them to let her resign voluntarily, as if. The video was also sent to the HR director's private email. His own wife raised hell. He had his own fires to put out. He wasn't about to stick his neck out for Ethan. They fired her for gross misconduct and bringing the company into disrepute. No severance. The other wives chuckled with satisfaction. Mrs. Chen, the wife of a finance mogul and our most informed member, took a sip of tea. The board is under immense pressure. Several major institutional investors have already expressed their concerns. The IPO process will definitely be affected. Ethan really shot himself in the foot this time. Their gazes, a mix of concern and admiration, all landed on me. I set my teacup down with a soft click, allowing a look of weary sadness to cross my face. It was just the right touch. I'm sorry you all have to see this mess. After so many years, I never thought it would come to this. I stirred my tea, watching the vortex form. It's heartbreaking, but life goes on. I'm so lucky to have all of you. Don't say that. Mrs. Davis immediately grabbed my hand. We're sisters. Would never let you be bullied by trash like that. Exactly. Mrs. Roberts added. Men. They get a little money and they forget who they are. They need to be reminded that they can't just set fire to their own homes and expect no consequences. Ava, what are your plans now? If you need anything from us, just ask. Mrs. Chen said. Always the most practical. I looked at them. These women were all brilliant in their own right. Their husbands might be partners or competitors, but within the club, united by their shared status as the wife and a common front against external threats, they demonstrated astonishing solidarity and power. Protecting me was, in a way, protecting their own positions and interests. Actually, there is something I could use your advice on. I sighed, pulling a copy of the divorce agreement Ethan had signed from my bag. He signed it. The terms are that he walks away with nothing. They passed it around. The room fell silent, save for the soft rustle of paper. He agreed that easily. Mrs. Davis raised a skeptical eyebrow. Ethan doesn't seem that generous. Mrs. Chen studied it closely, her finger tracing the asset list. The main assets are all here: company shares, real estate, bank accounts. It's clean. But Ava, after all these years, especially after the company took off, you must have made other investments. Did he not have any other arrangements? I gave a bitter smile. That's what worries me. He signed it too quickly, which makes me uneasy. I suspect he's transferred or hidden assets. Well, find them. Mrs. Roberts declared. I'll have my husband hire the best private investigator in the country. We'll dig up everything. I'll handle the financials. Mrs. Chen said immediately. I know partners at all the major accounting firms. We'll look into his company's finances. Related party transactions. If there's anything dirty, we'll find it. And don't worry about the courts, Mrs. Davis added. My brother-in-law is a judge. In a divorce case with such clear evidence, once you find proof of hidden assets, the court will make him pay. A warmth spread through my chest, mixed with a tinge of sourness. This was the power of the Wives' Club. It wasn't a formal alliance sealed with contracts. It was a network built over countless afternoon teas, charity galas, and salon discussions. It was forged in the quiet exchange of information and favors. It was a deep, slow-moving river that could, when needed, become a tidal wave, crashing down on its target with pinpoint accuracy. Thank you, my friends, I said sincerely. But right now, there's something more urgent I need your opinion on. They all looked at me. His original shares in the company, I want to get rid of them. The sight of them makes me sick. I said flatly. The company is trying to go public. So this block of shares is a sensitive issue. Selling them off in a large chunk would hurt the valuation. And selling in small pieces would take too long. I was thinking of selling them directly back to him. They exchanged glances. Mrs. Chin was the first to grasp the implications. A smile touching her lips. Force him to buy them. He's already in hot water with the board. And his personal finances must be tight. If you make him buy them back at a premium now, it will bleed him dry. How much of a premium? Mrs. Davis' eyes lit up. I held up 2 fingers. Double. Mrs. Roberts gasped, then covered her mouth, a laugh escaping. Ava, you are deliciously ruthless. Where is he going to find that much cash right now? He'll have to borrow it. Mortgage whatever he has left. Take out loans. I said calmly. And he'll have to do it fast. Otherwise, he'll have to sell them to an outside firm at a discount. When that news gets out, the company's valuation will tank. And the board will have his head. After his apology, he can't risk another scandal. Brilliant. Mrs. Chen gave me a thumb up. You get your money out fast. And you drain him completely. To save the IPO and his position. He'll have to swallow his pride and find the money. Do you need us to turn up the heat? Mrs. Davis asked eagerly. I can have my husband drop a few hints at the next board meeting about the importance of shareholder stability. I smiled and nodded. I would be most grateful. The sun was bright. The tea still fragrant. We raised our cups, just as we had done countless times before, and gently clinked them together. The sound was crisp and clear, like a trumpet call before a charge. I knew Ethan would receive my offer soon, and he would have no choice but to accept. As we predicted, Ethan nearly lost his mind when he received the share buyback offer from my lawyer. I heard he smashed his favorite porcelain teapot in his office, his roars audible from outside the door. Double the price. At this sensitive, pre-IPO stage, it was nothing short of extortion and humiliation. But what could he do? The board was already furious with him over the scandal and the impending divorce. If he refused my offer and I dumped my shares on the market, even at a discount, it would send the company's valuation into a freefall and likely kill the IPO. He couldn't afford to take that risk. More than that, he had no idea what other dirt I had on him and Lynn. Until the divorce was finalized, he wouldn't dare provoke me further. He had to grit his teeth and pay. He liquidated nearly all his assets, mortgaged a secret property. He owned a property Mrs. Chen's investigator had quickly uncovered, and took out a high-interest bridge loan from a private lender. He finally scraped together the astronomical sum. The day the money hit my account, my lawyer called to confirm. I stared at the long string of numbers in my bank balance. I felt no joy, only a cold, quiet satisfaction. I was just taking back what was mine. The day after the transfer was complete, Ethan called. His voice was hoarse, thick with suppressed rage and exhaustion. Ava, you have the money. The shares are back in my name. Are we done now? Can we finally go our separate ways? Before I could answer, a sickly wheat female voice chirped in the background, loud enough for me to hear. Ethan, darling, why are you still talking to that old hag? We can always make more money. Once the company goes public, this will be nothing. Now come on. I made you some soup. It was Lynn. So, even after being fired, she was still attached to him. I heard Ethan muffle the phone, hissing something at her, but he didn't stop her. I smiled to myself. Men, they never learn. Done, I said coolly. Ethan, you seem to forget. We're not officially divorced yet, and the court hasn't issued a final ruling on our assets. Who knows what else might have been overlooked. Ava, don't you push me, he snarled. And please, thank Miss Lynn for the soup, I added, my tone light. It seems she's quite the caregiver, but do remind her to be careful when she's cooking. She wouldn't want to accidentally stew someone else's husband into her bed again. After all, not everyone is as generous as I am. You. Ethan choked on his rage. I hung up. I could picture him on the other end, absolutely livid, on the brink of financial ruin, his mistress fanning the flames. And my relentless taunts, it was enough to shatter the sanity of any man accustomed to pride and control. My prediction came true sooner than I expected. A few days later, I was leaving a Heinz spa with two of the other wives. As we waited for our cars, a familiar black Mercedes screeched to a halt in front of us. Ethan stormed out of the driver's side, his face a thundercloud. In the passenger seat, a smug Lynn snuggled up against the empty space had left. She seemed to relish her role as the victor, even though the man beside her had just lost everything because of her. Ava. Ethan rushed toward me, his eyes bloodshot, radiating a cornered animal's madness. You're ruthless. You took everything from me. Are you happy now? The other wives immediately stepped in front of me. Mrs. Davis snapped. Ethan, what do you think you're doing? Control yourself in public. Control myself. What do I have left to control? He laughed. A wild, crazed sound. This vicious woman destroyed it all. Lynn got out of the car and clung to Ethan's arm, her voice dripping with venom. Ethan, sweetie, don't be angry. Some people just can't stand to see others happy. When they get old and can't keep a man, they resort to these pathetic tricks. Don't worry. Once the company goes public, she'll be the one crying with regret. Go public. I looked at them and suddenly laughed. The sound seemed to strike Ethan's most sensitive nerve. Ethan, you don't actually believe you're still going to have an IPO, do you? His manic grin froze. What are you talking about? I'm talking about. I took a step forward, my gaze sweeping over him and landing on Lynn's instantly paling face. Your inflated performance numbers, padded with fake orders and related party transactions. Do you really think they'll hold up under scrutiny? And what about the project funds you misappropriated to buy back my shares? Did you manage to cook the books in time? Ethan's face turned the color of death. How could you possibly know? Lynn was panicking too. You're lying. We'll see if I'm lying soon enough, I said, pulling out my phone and checking the time. Right about now. The SEC and the Financial Crimes Unit should be receiving a rather detailed anonymous tip. Oh, and I imagine the major financial news outlets will be getting wind of it shortly. AVA. Ethan let out a desperate, primal roar and lunged at me, trying to snatch my phone. The wives' drivers and the spa's security guards instantly intervened, restraining him. He struggled like a trapped beast, his eyes locked on me, filled with a terrifying mix of disbelief and hatred. Lynn shrieked beside him, uselessly trying to push the guards away. I smoothed my hair, which had been ruffled by the wind, and watched the chaotic scene unfold. My voice was calm and steady. Ethan, I offered you a dignified exit. You're the one who refused to take it. Enjoy your IPO dream. With that, I turned my back on his twisted face and got into my car. As the car pulled away, I could see him in the rearview mirror, held back by security, looking utterly lost. Lynn was pulling at his arm, screaming and crying. The setting sun cast a broken, golden light on his silhouette, like a clown whose act was finally over. A text came in from Mrs. Davis. Got it all on video. Absolutely spectacular. I replied, thank you, my friend. Now, we watched the show. I knew his dream of going public was dead, and it was all because he made one simple mistake. He brought his new lover to taunt me. Men always underestimate a woman's desire for revenge, especially a betrayed woman with resources and intelligence. The official investigation notice from the SEC and the surprise visit from the Financial Crimes Unit were two precision-guided missiles that obliterated the company's already fragile IPO plans. Fake orders, inflated revenue through related party transactions, misappropriation of special project funds. Every crime was meticulously detailed in the anonymous report, supported by an irrefutable chain of evidence. The company's accounts were frozen, operations ground to a halt, and panic spread among the employees. As the legal representative and the person directly responsible, Ethan was taken into custody. Although he was quickly released on bail, his reputation was in ruins. and the board officially kicked him out for good. The massive loan he had taken out by mortgaging everything he owned was now a dead weight, with no hope of repayment. In the midst of this chaos, the court hearing for our divorce and asset division proceeded as scheduled. In court, Ethan looked haggard and broken, his eyes clouded. The confident, charismatic man he once was had vanished. He tried to argue, accusing me of malicious revenge and of hiding marital assets myself. His lawyer even presented a piece of evidencia claim that a luxury apartment and a large investment portfolio recently acquired by Lynn were earned through her own merits and had nothing to do with Ethan. Your Honor, the plaintiff has evidence showing a close relationship and significant financial transfers between the defendant and this Ms. Lynn, my lawyer stated calmly, submitting a new file. It was the ironclad proof of financial flows that Mrs. Chin had unearthed through her connections in the finance world. It clearly showed that the funds for the apartment and investments had been wired in several transactions from one of Ethan's little-known offshore accounts. The money had been laundered through several shell companies before finally landing in Lynn's account. The timing of these transfers coincided perfectly with the period after he began his affair. The final nail in his coffin was that one of the key transfers matched the exact amount and date of the project funds he had misappropriated from the company. That's impossible. How did you? Ethan's lawyer blurted out, then snapped his mouth shut, realizing his mistake. Ethan sat in the defendant's chair, his face ashen, his lips trembling. He was speechless. He would probably never figure out how I had managed to unearth secrets he thought were buried flawlessly. The judge reviewed the evidence, his expression growing more severe. After a brief recess, the verdict was delivered. It was no surprise. The court found Ethan guilty of gross misconduct during the marriage adultery and of maliciously hiding and transferring marital assets. The divorce was granted. The division of assets proceeded according to my petition, leaving Ethan with virtually nothing. Furthermore, the court ruled that the funds transferred to Lynn for the apartment and investments were marital property and must be returned. Lynn was ordered to repay the full amount, plus interest, to me within 15 days of the ruling. The gavel fell. It was final. I sat in my seat, looking at the man across from me who had lost everything overnight. He had been my childhood sweetheart, my husband, the entrepreneur I had poured my entire being into supporting. Now, all that remained between us was a cold legal document and a deep, abiding hatred. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. For a moment they were empty, then they flared with a wild, desperate fire. But the fire died as quickly as it came, leaving only endless despair. He had lost, utterly and completely. After the hearing, I was mobbed by reporters. Flashbulbs popped, and questions were thrown at me from all directions. Ms. Scott, are you satisfied with the verdict? Is it true that you were involved in your ex-husband's company's downfall? What are your plans now? I didn't answer a single question. Flanked by my lawyer and assistant, I pushed through the crowd and got into my car. My phone buzzed. The Wives Club group chat was flooded with messages. Congratulations, Ava. And justice is served. Mrs. Chin sent me a private message. As soon as the funds are in, I'll set you up with the best financial advisor. Mrs. Davis sent a celebratory sticker. We're celebrating tonight. No holding back. Mrs. Roberts sent a word of caution. Be careful. A cornered dog is dangerous. And his parents are no saints. Her warning proved prophetic. 3 days after the verdict, Ethan's parents' former in-law showed up at the gate of my villa. His mother, shedding all pretense of her usual elegance, pounded on the gate, wailing, Ava, you heartless, venomous bitch. Look what you've done to my son. Are you trying to kill him? Come out here. His father's face was purple with rage as he pointed at the security camera. We were blind to let our son marry a curse like you. Give back the money you tricked him out of, or we won't let this go. The security guards tried to intervene, but the couple used their age to their advantage, throwing a tantrum and making a scene. I told the guards to let them in. Some things needed a final resolution. They stormed into my living room. Ethan's mother pointed a finger in my face, spittle flying. The money the court gave you. That's my son's blood, sweat, and tears. You need to take it and bribe someone. My son is going to jail because of you. I sat on the sofa, calmly brewing tea, even pouring 2 cups for them. Jail. I looked up. That would be because he broke the law. Misappropriated funds. Fraudulent transactions. He did all of that on his own. What does it have to do with me? If you hadn't reported him, if you hadn't forced him to buy those stupid shares, he would never. His father trembled with rage. Did I hold a knife to his throat and force him to cheat? Force him to embezzle company funds? Force him to buy his mistress a house? I set the teapot down, my voice hardening. The court's decision is in black and white. Shall I read it to you? It was your son who committed adultery, transferred assets illegally, and broke the law. He brought this upon himself. That's bullshit. His mother shrieked. What man doesn't have a little fun on the side? It was just a woman. What's the big deal? You had to be so vicious and destroy him. You're just jealous. You couldn't even give him a son, so you won't let another woman have his baby. That last line was a poison dart, aimed at an old wound. We had argued about having children before, and they had never let me forget it. My expression turned to stone. I picked up my phone, called the property manager, and put him on speaker. Mr. Miller, 2 individuals have illegally entered my home. They're harassing and insulting me. Please have them removed immediately. Furthermore, they are not to be allowed into this community again without my express permission. Otherwise, I will hold the management company legally responsible. Yes, Ms. Scott. Right away, Ms. Scott. My apologies. The manager's panicked voice crackled through the phone. Next, I dialed my lawyer. Daniel, Ethan's parents are at my home, making a scene, slandering me, and severely disrupting my life. Please prepare to file for a restraining order and a defamation lawsuit for emotional damages. I put the phone down and looked at my stunned former in-laws. Every penny the court awarded me was either our legal marital property or assets he tried to illegally transfer. As for you, I stood up, looking down on them. If you continue this behavior, I will call the police and I will sue you. I have recorded everything you've just said. I gestured to the discreet security camera in the corner of the room. At that moment, the guards arrived and firmly asked them to leave. Ethan's parents' faces went from red to white. They were used to getting their way through tantrums and appeals to seniority. But against the cold, hard wall of the law and absolute power, their tactics were useless. They were finally escorted out, sputtering curses and threats. I heard later that they did consult a lawyer, who told them my actions were completely legal and that they, in fact, could be sued for harassment and slander. With my recordings as proof, they would not only lose but would also have to pay me damages and could even be detained for disturbing the peace. They fell silent after that. Finally, the world was quiet. I stood in the large, now empty house, looking out the window. The sun was setting, painting half the sky in shades of crimson. A war that had lasted for months had finally come to an end. I had won. I had won back my assets and my dignity. But a part of my heart felt hollow, a cold wind blowing through it. The years of friendship, of shared struggles and dreams, were well and truly dead. They had rotted away, fermenting into an ugly, brutal war of annihilation. But perhaps it was for the best. The storm engulfing Ethan's company continued to rage. With the IPO dream shattered and the investigation deepening, more problems surfaced. Executives resigned. Key employees jumped ship. Major clients canceled contracts, and suppliers demanded payment. The once celebrated unicorn company was collapsing in real time. Ethan himself was facing not only mountains of debt, but also potential prison time for embezzlement and other charges. I heard he had become a wreck, drinking heavily, his temper volatile. And Lynn, his partner in crime, was not faring any better. The court had ordered her to repay the massive sum. Her apartment and investments were frozen and slated for seizure. In an instant, she had gone from a future CEO's wife with a luxury lifestyle to a broke, indebted pariah. The life of wealth she had envisioned was a fragile bubble that had burst with a resounding pop. The price she paid was far greater than just money. The media had a field day with her story, and her reputation was so tarnished she would never find a decent job in this city again. It is one thing to be poor, but it is another to have tasted luxury and have it snatched away. The shock, the debt, and the terrifying uncertainty of the future were enough to drive anyone mad. Most importantly, she had gambled on Ethan's success. She bet he would go public, that he would give her status and wealth. Now, he was worse than broke. He was a disgraced, Volatile wreck with no future. Love. Faced with such a catastrophic collapse of mutual interest, whatever cheap thrill they called love was as thin as paper. The conflict was inevitable. They began to fight constantly, blaming each other for their ruin, their resentment growing deeper each day. Lynn reportedly pushed Ethan to find a way to pay off her court-ordered debt. Ethan, in turn, cursed her as a jinx, screaming that if it weren't for her, he would never have provoked me, and none of this would have happened. On a stormy night, in the damp, squalid apartment they were renting, another vicious argument erupted. No one knows exactly what was said. A neighbor only heard a man's enraged roar, a woman's shrill screams, and the crash of breaking objects. Then, suddenly, silence. An eerie, terrifying silence. Minutes later, a woman's blood-curdling shriek, barely human, was followed by the sound of someone stumbling frantically down the stairs. The neighbor, terrified, called the police. When the police and ambulance arrived, they broke down the door to find a scene of utter chaos. Ethan was lying in a pool of blood, his lower body a mangled mess. He was unconscious. On the floor beside him lay a bloody fruit knife. Lynn was gone. Ethan was rushed to the hospital. They saved his life, but certain parts of him had sustained catastrophic, irreversible damage. The doctors confirmed he had lost all male function. The police quickly apprehended Lynn at a bus station on the outskirts of the city. She was trying to flee. Her hair was a mess, her clothes torn, her eyes vacant. There were bruises on her face. She kept muttering, "I didn't mean to. He hit me. He deserved it. He ruined my life." The news spread like wildfire. Shock, pity, disgust, morbid satisfaction. The reactions were varied. In the Wives Club group chat, there was a rare moment of silence. Then Mrs. Davis wrote, "That's one way to do it." Mrs. Roberts replied, "You reap what you sow." Mrs. Chen, ever the pragmatist, added, "Two miserable, hateful people. Better they're locked up together, so they can't harm anyone else." I said nothing, just stared at the words on my screen. Outside, a thunderstorm raged, the rain lashing against the windows, washing the world clean. I remembered a day long ago. Ethan, then just a boy, held his umbrella entirely over my head during a downpour, letting his own shoulder get soaked. He had grinned at me and said, "Ava, I'm going to give you the best life. I'll be good to you forever." My eyes stung. I closed them. All the tumultuous emotions, love, hate, triumph, sorrow, seemed to be caught in that storm, diluted and washed away, leaving behind nothing but a vast, hollow exhaustion. He had received the cruelest possible punishment. In a purely physical sense, he could never cheat again. And that girl, in the most extreme way, had destroyed her own life as well. This was a war with no winners. We were all losers. I didn't attend Ethan's trial. My lawyer kept me informed. Lynn's defense argued that she acted in a moment of passion, after suffering long-term emotional abuse and violence. They pleaded for a lesser charge of aggravated assault rather than attempted murder. The court accepted parts of her defense, but given the severity of the outcome, she was still sentenced to a long prison term. After Ethan was discharged from the hospital, he was a broken man, both physically and mentally. His own legal case was still pending, drowning in debt, his reputation destroyed. His future was a bleak, empty expanse. I heard his parents took him back to their hometown, far away from the city that held nothing but painful memories. Everything seemed to have finally settled. I sold the large house, filled with too many ghosts, and moved into a smaller, cozier apartment. I liquidated some assets and entrusted the bulk of my fortune to the financial team Mrs. Chin recommended. It was more than enough to live comfortably, even luxuriously, for the rest of my life. Life slowly returned to a semblance of peace. I still attended the Wives Club meetings. I was a core member. After what happened, my status within the club had, in a way, been elevated. They admired my decisiveness and strategy. They were more willing than ever to share information and strengthen our ties. We still drank tea, chatted, organized charity events, and exchanged discreet, valuable information. It was as if nothing had changed. But sometimes, after a gathering, as I sat alone in my quiet living room, I would feel a profound sense of loneliness. I had defeated my enemy, defended my honor, and secured my fortune. And then what? The love, the trust. The shared history of over a decade was all gone. Our afternoon teas continued, but the atmosphere had subtly shifted. Before, we were primarily a support network, a defensive alliance. Now, a new, more proactive energy was brewing. My war with Ethan had been more than a personal crisis. It was a stress test for our network. It had proven our solidarity and, more importantly, demonstrated to everyone, including ourselves, the immense power this group of wives could wield. "Ladies, have you noticed?" Mrs. Chin said one afternoon, setting down her financial newspaper. "After the whole Ethan affair, the way men in this city look at us has changed." Mrs. Davis snorted. "They used to think we were just a bunch of rich women who spent their husbands' money and worried about mistresses. Now they know that if we team up, we can ruin them. It's more than just a deterrent." Mrs. Roberts stirred her coffee, her voice as gentle as ever but her words precise. "What happened with Ava served as a form of credit endorsement for our circle. People now understand that membership in this club signifies a certain level of credibility, resources, and power. It's an intangible asset." She was right. It was something I had been thinking about. What did we possess? A vast and powerful network, incredible purchasing power, first-hand knowledge of multiple industries, and the ability to mobilize immense resources. But we had always used these assets defensively to protect our marriages and our wealth. Why couldn't we go on the offensive? "Ladies," I began, and all eyes turned to me. "Have you ever considered making the club more formal?" "More formal?" Mrs. Davis raised an eyebrow. "Yes," I said, choosing my words carefully. "We're more than just a social club. We are a nexus of premium consumers, a hub of information, and a circle of trust. Why can't we turn that into something more interesting and more profitable?" Mrs. Chin leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "You mean monetize it?" "Not in a traditional commercial sense." I shook my head. "We don't need to ring a bell on Wall Street. But we could establish a boutique investment club, a high-end resource integration platform, open only to a select group of women who pass a rigorous vetting process. Together, we could not only prevent disasters, but also discover the future." The room fell silent. The other wives' eyes lit up. They were all intelligent women who had learned much from their husbands' ventures. My proposal had just ignited a spark. "We could be angel investors," Mrs. Davis said, excited. "We could focus on female-led startups. We could provide capital, resources, and mentorship to promising young women. And more," Mrs. Roberts added. "Luxury brands are desperate to reach clients like us. We could create a curated platform, recommending only the best products and services. The profits could fund our investment arm. The information sharing could be systematized." Mrs. Chin mused. "Industry trends, policy analysis, even warnings about potential landmines could be a value-added service for members. Trust is our most valuable currency." The more we talked, the clearer the vision became. We moved quickly, leveraging our collective reputation and the deterrent effect from my ordeal. The club's upgrade proceeded with astonishing speed. We established strict membership criteria, looking beyond a woman's marital status to her own capabilities, resources, and reputation. We hired a small professional team to manage operations. We launched the Aurora Fund, an investment vehicle for female entrepreneurs, with Mrs. Chin leading a team of professional analysts. Our deal flow was unparalleled. Our social circles were a goldmine of untapped potential. Our first round of investments was small, but incredibly successful. We backed a niche designer brand recommended by a member, with a little push from our network. Its sales grew tenfold in 3 months. We provided seed funding for a new materials lab led by a female scientist. It soon attracted national-level funding. Our curated e-commerce platform, The Pavilion, went live. We didn't have to chase brands. They clamored for a spot, eager for the endorsement of the city's most discerning and influential women. The profits were substantial and were funneled back into our fund. Our meetings continued, but the topics of conversation shifted from gossip and domestic squabbles to industry forecasts, deal analysis, and resource allocation. We even hosted a small, exclusive charity gala under the club's new name. An invitation was the most sought-after ticket in town. That evening, as we, the founding partners, stood on stage, I looked out at the glittering crowd of elites. I saw respect in their eyes, a recognition of our power. Mrs. Davis nudged me. See that guy over there? The one who tried to block our last investment. He's been smiling at us all night. He wants to get his daughter a membership. Mrs. Roberts smiled serenely. We're not just a club anymore. We're Aurora Capital. Later that night, we returned to our private room at the Crystal Pavilion. We changed out of our gowns and into comfortable pajamas, sprawling on the sofas and eating takeout. Just like old times. I can't believe we actually pulled this off, Mrs. Davis said through a mouthful of chicken wings. So, when's our IPO? She joked. Mrs. Chin handed her a cup of tea. Why would we go public? We're discreet. We're profitable. And most importantly, we're in complete control. An IPO means regulations and shareholder meetings. Too much hassle. Exactly. Mrs. Roberts agreed. This is perfect. We call the shots. That's what matters. I listened to them, a smile on my face. We would probably never ring a bell at the stock exchange, the way Ethan had so desperately wanted to. But in a way, our success was already public. One day, an anonymous package arrived from overseas. Inside was a box of handmade chocolates and a card. There was no signature, only a single typed line. Thank you. Take care. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the postmark was from the city where Mrs. Roberts' daughter was studying abroad. I popped a chocolate into my mouth. It was bittersweet, melting slowly on my tongue. I smiled and tucked the card away in a drawer. The sun was shining. I sat on my balcony, reading a magazine. I flipped through a few pages, then closed it, my gaze drifting toward the city skyline. Life moves on. The surface is calm, but only you know the currents that run beneath. All of it good, the bad, the pain. The triumph has settled at the bottom, becoming the very foundation of who I am now. It has made me harder, and it has made me clearer. My phone rang. It was Mrs. Davis, inviting me to a new art exhibition that weekend. I answered, my voice light and cheerful. Of course. What time? I'm free. Epilogue. Ethan's monologue. My name is Ethan. I was once the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company. Now, I'm inmate 7436. The bars of my cell are cold, but in my dreams, I'm always back in our childhood. And she's handing me a piece of candy. The memory is so sweet it burns. At the height of my success, she played that video at the board meeting, nailing me to a cross of my own making. She forced me to buy back my shares at double the price, draining my last drop of blood. On the eve of my IPO, she made a single, quiet phone call, and my 10 years of work turned to ash. Even the money I'd hidden for Lynn, she dug it up from the depths of the earth, and the court stripped it all away. My parents went to confront her and ended up with a restraining order. And when Lynn's knife came down, the final, brutal act in this tragedy, I honestly felt a sense of relief. In this life, I betrayed her, and she destroyed me. I suppose that means we're even.